Hi, everyone. Welcome to this Tiara Talk. We are here together, Alison Biller in Los Angeles in the United States, and myself, Franciska Dekker, in the Netherlands. And we are both managing partners with Tiara International. We are a women's leadership development company. And we like to have these talks, short and sweet, about something that is close to our heart. And what's happening in this at this time is that International Women's Day is coming up again. And since we are a global women's leadership development company, well, this is an interesting and important topic for us to just look at. And the theme for this year is break the bias. And obviously, it is pointing towards breaking the bias in structures and processes in organizations and ways how we live and work together. And there is much more to that as well. Breaking the bias, it sounds really, how do you say, something that we really need to fight for, and at the same time it's not easy at all. Where to start, what to do, what is our influence, where is it not? So right. My question for you, Alison, especially, can you share a little bit more about what you know about a bias to be true, also from your background as a psychologist and a leadership development consultant?
Mm-hmm. Thanks, Franciska. Well, I mean, bias is something that we all experience, right? It's a natural inclination to have, like, to sort of be for or against ideas, objects, people, groups, that we have an inclination to like and feel safer around, people like our in-group that are similar to us, and have a bias against people or groups that are different from us. It's kind of how we're wired. And obviously that can do incredible great harm. And what happens when we get into beyond an individual, we get into groups of people where, in a sense, there's a collective bias, and it's not seen. It moves into the blind spot. It just looks like that's the way that it is. And actually what it is, it's more like a trance, like a vampire compels people into a trance where they're highly suggestible, right? We're in this state of like, well, that's how it is. And actually what's going on is that we're having an inclination that's it's actually incorrect, but we filter everything through it. And so you can't see that what's actually going on is that you're experiencing bias, and we all have that within us. And breaking the bias, as you said, it's very challenging, but one thing all of us can do to help break the bias is notice it in ourselves, bring what's in the shadow into the light, notice where we are biased. And it's really a practice of dropping down into our hearts and remembering these are other human beings, and being able to see people beyond things like their gender or their race or their religion or their abilities, or their socioeconomic status or whatever it is, being able to actually see this is a human being. And I might have biases that have been, that are kind of patterns way of seeing people in me, but can I see beyond the bias? That's the challenge for each of us as individuals.
Right. Yes. Thank you for making it explicit that we may have like group bias, cultural bias, and also our individual biases, and that it is really natural. Like, we are all living in different boxes, right? Sometimes we tell each other you have to think out of the box or live out of the box. But having created the structures as they are in our societies and in our institutions, is coming with a bias from cultural paradigms like, oh, this is how we should do it. The idea of fighting, of going against how the work is being distributed, is in fact also a kind of bias. So there seems to be better biases and or supportive biases and sabotaging biases towards the world where we really want to live, and assuming, and that's definitely a vision that we have for Tiara, that we really want to see a world where yeah, that's good for all, that works for all. And that includes also women and men and people of any gender, yeah, to powerfully lead their life from inspiration and leading that and taking that journey. Oh, that's a whole journey of breaking a lot of biases on the way. You know, when we look back at our own leadership journeys and also how we work with clients, it seems that we are invited by each other, by ourselves, to break one bias after the other. So it's not so easy when you are in a box.
Yeah, you know, the commitment to break the bias in many ways is an invitation to a more spiritual path, a path of, I want to live a life where I'm more present, that when I'm in the presence of another human being, I'm here with that human, not inside my stories and my biases and my filters and my stereotypes and my little mental shortcuts. I allow myself and my energy, my presence to come forward and be with another person. So often when we might be physically with another person, we're actually kind of separated by biases and not really in the presence outside the narrative that's created by the bias. You know, so it's really, this is an invitation to all of us, you know, on this planet to say, what would my life be like if I showed up and was just present with people and stepped out of the comfort and illusion of safety that's created by my biases?
Yes. Yeah. Right. Yeah. Beautiful. Talking about an invitation. And one of the challenges I see is that not everyone will take that invitation. So we are finding ourselves in a reality where there are people, organizations that have that are not ready or willing to open up to new paradigms.
Yes.
Of indeed, yeah, seeing that path. It feels like, well, like there are many things to be said about.
It's true. And you know, there are organizations that literally are set up to maintain bias.
Yeah.
We have to recognize that, you know, the reality of what we're dealing with. People are committed to their bias.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Some people are, I'm just saying, they're highly committed to it.
Highly committed indeed. Yeah. Okay. That said, it is quite a complex challenge. It looks different for everyone. And the invitation from the organization of International Women's Day is to help. So we are also thinking, how can we help? And at Tiara, one way that we are helping is on March 8th, we will host a true leadership session on this topic, breaking the bias, and explore with the members who will be present in there what they can do, what they are actually seeing in their environment, what they can do, the bias that they can change or break outside of themselves, inside of themselves. So let's hope that that will add something to the evolution towards a bias-free world. Is it a bias-free world? I don't know
It's a good question. I mean, I would say maybe it's really a world where we are aware of we become aware of bias inside ourselves. And while we might not be able to put an end to it, the bias is not in charge. We are freer to choose how we share power, relate to one another's, set up structures, policies, systems, etc., that aren't tainted by bias.
Well said, Alison. Thank you so much. Awareness, indeed. All right. Thank you, everyone, for watching. Maybe you will join us on March 8th, and otherwise, maybe we'll be together.